Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Michael. How you doing?
Good.
Cool.
What are you doing?
I'm doing real good. 97 degrees, a little bit warm. Well, actually, it cooled down now, but come home straight in the AC. But that's it. How's California?
I'm in Wisconsin.
Oh, you're in Wisconsin?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How long are you there for?
The week.
Oh,
Yeah. Boy.
sound like you got that off too.
Let's see. Okay. Okay. Look at all the people we got today. All right. Well, we're gonna get started. I got a little less time than an hour today, but I'll be able to cover everything anyway. I'm actually in Wisconsin with a team at the warehouse. We're at the manufacturing facility for this new thing I'm doing, but can you guys hear that in the background? Can you hear me or can you hear the background?
Just you.
Okay, all right, perfect. I can hear the background, it's annoying me. Anyway, thank you for all coming. Man, I sat in the airport forever today. Got so many delays trying to get out here, and when I landed, and I was pretty annoyed. When I landed, I heard terrible news out of Dallas. So it was kind of sad to hear that there was a shooting in the Dallas airport today. Sent the whole world of flights in a frenzy, but praying for whoever was involved in that. But yeah, I titled the thing today. I've been thinking a lot about like what crossing a line is. Like when I wrote that post, I didn't really know how to word it, because how I'm thinking about it is like not crossing a line that we all think about, like doing something bad, like crossing a line it's not supposed to cross, but more of like what are the lines in our life that, and how, and who's making them? You know what I mean? Like what are the lines that we can't cross, and who's making those? And I started reflecting on my life. I had listened to a podcast earlier in the week about procrastination. It was all about procrastination, some strengths about being a procrastinator. They're showing the strengths in it, and some of the creative minds that procrastinate actually get some more things done versus writing down task oriented. But I think there's always an argument to every side of everything when it comes to that. But that kind of sparked this whole thing on mine, because I'm not much of a like list writer. I don't have to put it in front of me. I don't plan things. Well, I told you guys before, I don't like plan trips or like think a week ahead, to anything. I do what's in front of me mostly, and I try to attack with the mentality that I'm very capable of getting something done. So if it comes at me, I'm going to get it done anyway. So I don't like to spend a lot of time in like planning it all out, so that it sets myself up for failure in case something doesn't work out. Whereas when something comes in my face, I can attack it, and I have a confidence in myself of getting it done. So this whole thing came up, and I started thinking about, what are these lines in our lives that we set our own lines. I mean, there's two versions of it to me. It's the lines that we draw in our lives, and then these general lines of life. which would be like government or rules we have to play by in your state or the law, things that are generally drawn in life that we don't have a choice over, and then the ones that we draw ourselves. The ones that we don't have control over, like say anything, if you don't have control over it, yeah, let it down. Yeah, do what you can, what you have control of. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't stand up for maybe lines that are drawn for us that aren't right, but to allow them to dictate your life, I think that's gone too far. The ones I really want to talk, more importantly, is the ones that we draw for ourselves. We always talk about expectation and setting out false expectation for ourselves, but we do this all the time. We're drawing lines all the time that we shouldn't be crossing. This is our moral code, or this is a line I would never cross. Like, my question, I think, to all of us is, how close do you get to that line? How close have you got to that line without actually crossing it? Have you pushed yourself right up against it? And just because you didn't step over, it's okay with you? I guess that's more in terms of like a taboo line or something that has a bad connotation to it, but any line really. Like, why do we draw these lines? To protect ourselves, to put a safety net around our life? Like, what are they for? I mean, we know what simple put the road, because we know what a line in the road's for, right? You're not supposed to cross it, because if you do, you can get in a head-on collision. It's dangerous. But who made that? Like, who talked about staying the lines? You know, teachers will talk about this all the time. At least open-minded teachers will talk about staying in the lines, and coloring books and stuff like that is not always the proper way of letting somebody be free in their artistry or their mind or their creation, their imagination. So I think about these lines like that. Like, who's putting them there? It always comes back to us, right? We have full control of what we're going to do for our lives individually. There's a lot of things that are out of our control, but there's a lot of things that are within our control that I think sometimes we just don't spend the minutes to take a look at the lines we've drawn for ourselves that has boxed us in. Sometimes they're these lines that we've learned, but sometimes we can start making some money that we actually box ourselves into it. We're trapped within our own lines. We're just doing it to ourselves. I just don't think, me personally, I don't think setting guidelines in my life or drawing lines that I'll say, look, I'm going to put this in stone, I'm going to put this right here, and I'm never going to cross it. For me personally, all that is a limitation of my life. It doesn't allow me to pivot and transition. It doesn't allow me to take on a different chapter of my life or season of my life and go, all the possibilities are here, because I spoke something true a long time ago that I would never do. But why do we do that to ourselves? You know, what's the point of it? We're different people all the time. Now, I've always talked about being, every 5 years of my life has been a very different portion of my life. And some people's are shorter, and some people's are longer. Some people's are months or quarters, or some people's decades. You know, for me, it's like every 5 years, something significant happens in my life, and it changes the course of my life and who I am. So why would I want to set some kind of standard or draw a line and say, I'm never crossing this. This is me. I've never crossed that line. I'm not saying you have to be a recluse and have no rules in your life or no morals, because that's obviously wrong as well. But you got to remember, sometimes the lines that we set are what we think the rest of the world expects from us as a human. And they're not even actually lines we'd set for ourselves if we didn't have the judgment of others upon us. So when I say, like, be a little more reckless with these lines that you're drawing, that's how I'm saying it. I'm saying, consider the fact that nobody would ever know him or say anything about him or judge you in any way. what would they be then? What would your guidelines and rules be for your life then? If nobody, I'm truthfully nobody, not just anybody ever knew, what would they be versus if everybody knew? Your family, your parents, your significant other, your kids. But if it was truly only you on the line, what would it be? I think we got to start merging those a little bit more because truthfully, the only thing that does matter is you and I, our personal decisions, what we believe is right and wrong. I don't know. It's a very touchy subject for me because some of the thoughts that I have about what I think is right and wrong or lines are just not in line with most people. But I think the point of what I'm trying to say is I think you could push up against a lot of lines and even cross them and be okay with it and not have a feel a guilty way with about because it was set so long ago or it was something that I don't know, maybe you were raised like there's something that's like a big no-no, but like I just don't think that we should set those for ourselves and set ourselves up to add that pressure to our life. You find out the most about yourself when you're pushed up against it. You know, I always say this new opportunity I'm doing now has got me like finally back into my headspace of being pushed in the corner because I love working from that space. I like being in a spot where I don't know anything. I like being in the spot where I'm not the smartest person in the room. I like being in the spot that I'm doubted a little bit. I like being in the spot that people are a little questioning, like, why the hell is he here? Because it allows me to push really hard up against my lines. It allows me to push against lines that I didn't know that I had until I took the challenge, you know? And I think that's what I'm trying to get at with this. I think it's like, how do we know what greatness lies for us if we set these lines in place? You know, if we start setting them in place, we start boxing ourselves in, we can't get out. It feels like it's too much. It feels like it's too late. You know, like a lot of people I tell them when I do stuff, it's like they give me kind of the eyes or like what do you mean? You know, I'm 41 years old and I'm making like life-changing moves and like, huh? You know, and it's not supposed to make sense to everybody. That's what's okay about it. That's what I'm trying to say about these lines. It's okay to live wide open. It's okay to not have a plan. It's okay to wait for the plan to come to you. It's okay if nobody else gets it but you. It's okay if you just want to try something. Maybe you want to cross a line that you've had forever and you want to try it. And you know what? It didn't work out. Guess what? Draw the fucking line back up there. I don't know, you know? That's what erasers on the end of pencils are for. You know, if they wanted everything to be permanent the first time you ever did, they wouldn't have made erasers. There's this practice involved in pushing yourself. The falling down part, practice, the restarting, the redoing, the retrying. That maybe it wasn't for you the right time. That's all designed on purpose. That's why there's the eraser at the end. Like, you know, try it the first time. It's not what you like. Erase the whole thing, start over. And it doesn't even have to be the same picture. Maybe you don't like drawing dinosaurs. You want to draw mountains. Like, this is the point of the lines. We can't, a line can be bent too. What I love about a circle is just a line, curved. Like all the shapes start with a line. Like, so whatever we start here, like I'll never cross this line. Well, what if you go around it? What if you came this way? Or what if you bent that into a circle and then you went around it and you just close in the one core thing that you'll never be a part of, and you got to enjoy the things all around it? Or I think a limitation in our life is yeah, it's hard for me to explain. This was a tough one for me because I thought about it a lot, and I thought about not even talking about it because it's a hard one to explain. I think it's, for me, it's, when I think of linear things, I think of limited options, you know? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Emily.
I'm just, I feel that something else is not being said. I don't know what, or if I'm projecting that, but could you give us some like more examples of the context? Because for some reason, especially when you say cross the line, and obviously we all have a belief, like you started the conversation out, that immediately kind of sounds like when people say cross the line, that usually has something to do with a boundary or a negative context, and immediately made me feel a trigger in my diaphragm or belly, probably because I've been accused of it a million times in life, because I've believed part of my purpose here is to push people outside their comfort zones and things like that, including myself. But with what you're talking about tonight, I just like more context as to an example, or what kinds of, I don't know why, because I keep going to weird other things in my head, like doing a drug you wouldn't do, or doing like hard lines, and I don't know, I just want more.
Let's talk about that.
Where are we going? Yeah, let's talk about it deeper.
Because I don't, what I'm trying to say is, I don't think there's a hard line. I just don't believe in setting a hard line. Now, not because I don't believe in some of the things that people set hard lines on, like don't commit murder.
I was gonna say like moral, outside of moral or core belief type evils.
Yeah, like I'm not saying I discredit somebody's moral belief in setting a hard line or a hard no. I'm just saying in generality, setting lines for your life and a part of your
Limiting.
life and never revisiting it is a very limited mindset.
Okay.
And for me, like personal examples, I don't think there's anything one that came on my heart, but it was more about like, I think it's more about probably this week. I'm traveling to this thing, doing this thing. I'm sitting at a table for 30 people, and every single person's been in this business for 40 years. But looking at me like, why the hell are you here?
Yeah, but none of them were a focus band or have had the experiences you've had, or right. They live inside four lines.
No, exactly. I don't think it at all. I'm the only person not thinking it. But I think what I'm trying to say here is, what I wanted to bring it up is because I've not allowed myself to be that way. I've never really set. I've never really set hard lines in my life. I think that sounds probably bad when I say it like that, because you go to things like, oh, the hard no's, never cross that line. What I'm saying is I've never had that conversation myself because I've never needed to. I think you should just know the stuff you shouldn't do, and that shouldn't be a line you shouldn't cross. You shouldn't murder people. You shouldn't have to draw a line saying, I'm never going to cross this line. Murder.
Right.
I'm saying the side of being human, you should already know that. You should be having a conversation with yourself about, I am definitely a hard no on murder. Thanks, man. Well, now I know I can hang out with you. You know what I mean? Like, so I guess that's a better representation of what I'm saying. I mean the lines that we just are limiting to our growth in ourselves, and what we're allowing other people to tell us. A good friend of mine back home in New York just got a great opportunity. He's somebody that, like, parents have built him a legacy to be there forever, and he could do, like, everything's there for him and his kids and his family, and he could do it, and he has that choice, and he's doing good and everything. But he's had this thing on his heart for maybe the last 4 years plus. He's been talking when I'm away even, and something just came up. So an opportunity came up. He's gonna go interview at Flawed State to interview for it. And he was excited. And then at the end of the conversation, an hour later, he started getting defeated. And I just thought to myself, man, very capable human being is already taken over the business and running it well, like, proven himself. And his excitement quickly turned into self-doubt and fear. And it all came from, like, lines he was drawing in the conversation about what he's not. I'm not the things they want in this company. I'm not like that position would call. I've never done those things. And he's saying all these things to me, and I'm like, Well, then why the hell did they call you? Because you didn't call them. You know, all I can think about is like Dukes of Hazard over the line. Like when somebody's, especially if somebody's calling on you, if somebody's calling you into their season of their life, somebody's calling on you and brings you into their space, like, dude, giddy up, hit the gas, hit the jump, Dukes of Hazard over that line, and know that maybe that other side of that line's been the space you should be been in this whole time. But if we're not drawing them, we don't have to have that this conversation with ourselves about any of that, you know. So that's, I guess probably that's what sparked it early in the week. And then being here was, I started feeling what it felt like to be him because I was here in it. And I was like, damn. And I thought about my life, and I've never really had the conversation about it. And, you know, it's to my point that you even felt something from it, because when we say cross a line, it's never good. At least nobody ever starts like, hey, my friend just crossed a line, bad. Yeah,
Unless it's the finish line, right? Because everybody's so linear, like you were starting
Right.
to say.
exactly. So, I mean, you cross the winner's line, you get in the winner's circle. I'm just saying, it's like, if I try to think of things simply, like it's just shapes. It's nothing. It's not a stopping point. A wall can always be taken down. Houses get built, rebuilt all the time. You build a house based off the expectations of what you think you deserve, and then you hit another expectation of yourself, and you want to put an expansion in your house, or rebuild your house, or sell your house and get a bigger one. Walls can be taken down. And they're supposed to be, like, that's my point. Like, so even if you've drawn some lines in your life, I'm saying let's revisit them. The new person you are today, the season you're in today, and say, is that wall for me still? Is it containing me in a space that's not big enough for me to grow in? Maybe it's time to sell that place and get a new set of lines. I don't live with lines. It's annoying to most people around me, but it's the only way I know how to live. Because it has allowed me to be upset about crossing or not crossing, because both sides of that can be upsetting. If you think in the terms of Amber set a finish line and you feel like you've never crossed it, that can be upsetting. You know, if you feel like in terms of what you said earlier when I started was, if it's something really bad and you crossed it, it can be damaging because you want to keep that as a secret. You don't want to tell anybody, let it out. You hold on to it and harbor it. It can be something that truly starts eating you. Because when's the last time we really like to share really bad shit we've done to another person? It's not the first thing we go shout now, like, how you been? Huh, been absolutely destroying my friendships. You know, just hurting people left and right. How you been? You know, it's not, we don't start with that kind of stuff. So it's not like a conversation we're having with each other. So it's easily as damaging to set a line, and you know what? Maybe accidentally crossed it, or maybe crossed it on purpose because you wanted to, but you feel guilty because it was a line you set based on who you were and how you grew up. Or there's so much dynamic to it. I think it's, you know, it's easier for me to take the eraser out and take those lines out of my life and try to live anything that's in front of me. So yeah, I don't think it was anything particular more than it was a combination of things, me doing something new, listening to somebody I really respect and what he's done with his life. He's so excited and so let down at the same time in a conversation. Because I felt like he was trapped in his own little box that he's built around him. But yeah, I think in generalities, it's don't paint the line on the road if you don't have to. You know, later on, when they built roads, they painted the lines for boundaries. The white lines are to keep you inside the boundaries of the road, so you don't go off the road. The solid yellow lines in the middle are so you don't cross them, so you go into danger traffic. Many, many years later, they added a dotted line in sections of safety straight areas, so you can pass people that are going too slow. So you have to cross that line and take a risk. Anybody's ever passed a car in a 2-lane space on country road and you thought you had enough room and you started going, and as you see a car come over the crest, your heart going a little bit faster? Because it takes a risk to go over there. To gain what? Is everybody, I'm assuming everybody here has passed somebody over across a dotted cross line, right? What did you fucking gain? A spot in traffic? And then what? You saw that same person at the gas station 5 miles up. Like, you didn't gain anything, but we're still willing to take the risk to cross over, get ahead of an accident to what? Gain a space, a car space. So if we're willing to take these small risks like that, like this crap, like I'm saying, dude, sometimes it's worth going over the line. Not to get somewhere 1 second faster in the car behind you, or you always have to risk your life, but we do it all the time, every day. We're not paying attention to practical stuff, the small, easy visual things. Relate those to your life, because sometimes it's worth the risk. Sometimes you need to get around that car that's been going too slow, and you have to take a risk. You have to pop out a couple of times, see if something's coming, and then get out there and gas it and figure out your car's, the slowest one on the market, and it barely gets past anybody. Got about 5-10 minutes here ish. I got to cut a little bit soon because I got to go, but anybody want to share anything on this topic? I know it was super general whackish a little bit, but it's not really fully thought out in my mind. It's just been on my mind, so I wanted to share it. So if anybody wants to speak on it, glad to listen. Anybody? Anyone give an example of a line they've crossed in their life? Good, bad, indifferent?
I mean, I'll just say that, I'm like you in those ways. I obviously don't walk around telling people what my lines are, although one thing that I felt was super different about me for many years was, in a culture of most people who socially drank, I didn't. And I found myself constantly, like, every social situation I went in, I would walk in and be like, oh, I don't drink, or I felt like I had to, like, say this statement about myself. And then I don't know, and I turned 40, and at some point I was like, and I still don't like drink like a crazy person, but if I want a drink, or if I want an eclair, or if I want a piece of lettuce, or if I want anything, I just simply have it. I don't have to have some prerequisite statement about who I am or my identity. And the other thing that I kind of relate to this in a different way, but like you, is that I don't like titles, because I feel like they're very limiting. So I don't like to, say any one thing. I'm not any one thing. No one thing defines me. And so I want to be open and ready for anything that I might become, or that God calls me to do on any day, or show up, wherever I'm needed. So that's in one way how I live without lines. But then in other weird ways where the imprints, I guess, are deeper, I have more conservative lines around, like, relationships and things like that, which I find also odd about myself in ways, knowing, like, who I am, existentially. So it's an interesting conversation. I'm glad that you clarified a little bit.
Let's
me.
You can either say, or anybody else can say. I want to expand that thought just a little bit, because I know when you said about relationships, things like that, earlier what I was referring to was the ideas that we get from what we witnessed growing up. Sometimes we draw lines without even knowing we're doing them. So, like, how we witness our parents, how we witnessed their relationships, how we witnessed any relationships of adults around us before we got into one. So if we're talking about specifically relationships, sometimes this stuff is formed already and you don't even know why you have such a hard line. Now, I think both of these could be good and bad. Like, you hear a lot of stories, like our parents didn't have a good relationship, but like you hear about parents that have a good relationship, so I never want to be like them. So you set a hard line of, like, I'm never going to get divorced, or I'm never going to be like my parents, or I'm going to be better than them. So people set those hard lines. Or you set a hard line like that, and it turns against you, because now you are just limiting your options. You're limiting options to yourself and the ability to go through some of the stuff you need to go through to get to where you actually want to be. it's not always just like you can, well, I'm not going to be that person. I'm just going to be the opposite. It's not a heads and tails coin flip. It's trial and error. It's trying and trusting. It's being out there and available. It's like going on dates and going, like, have to be out there to have some shitty shit happen. Maybe be just like your parents for a minute, to not be like them.
Well, and practicing, right? Like what, and like honing our skills just in relationships in general with all humans. It's a practice. How do I get better at this?
Yeah, but I think that's where a lot of the lines people, if I would have said this to 100 people over and over, I bet you a lot of minds go straight to relationships. When I say, have you ever crossed the line? I guarantee a lot go right there right away, because unless you've murdered somebody, you don't go right to the worst thing ever. Like, unless you've actually murdered somebody, nobody has, right? Okay. But yeah, so I think we go to that because it's probably it's the one thing that I think everybody can relate to. Heartbreak is a damning thing. It's a hurtful thing, and when you have to go through it, it sucks, and it feels like somebody crossed a line in some way. But I wanted to expand that only because Amber brought it up, and our parents didn't have like a model thing to watch. But why I try not to have it is because I don't want to fall in that trap of being like, I'm just never going to be like them. Because what it's doing is it's going to give me only one other option, the opposite. And two, it's just saying I don't want to be like them. It's like, well, there's a lot of things I love about both of them that I want to be like, want to emulate, that I am like, not my bad choice. So I think when we set these things, these like hard lines, if you will, like Amber said, I think it's dangerous. I think it can be dangerous for our growth.
Well, and also, how do we live in the duality of the world? We've talked about this, probably over a year ago in some of these conversations, but societally too, we live in a world that is kind of anti-nature in a weird way, right? And then you put Christianity and things like that have been imprinted for centuries on all of us. And not to say anything bad about Christianity or religion or anything like that, but just, again, there's a lot of lines drawn in doctrine. And so, but in nature, if we're watching National Geographic all day, those lines are completely different when you're talking about survival of the fittest and the lions with the best genes and all those types of things. So it's like we live in a world where in our nature there is something in us that knows that we could live so much more not existentially, exponentially. Like we could live in much bigger ways and have many, many relationships and all kinds of things on all different levels all over the world. And that could be okay if there was any kind of society that backed that up on any level. But you have to be a very, very, very strong, independent person that has a very thick skin to be able to really, truly live like a lion would live in an African desert, as opposed to in the society we live in with full witness, because there is so much judgment and there's so many different kinds of lions. Not only in individuals, but in individual families and in individual cultures and religions and so forth. So it's a huge conversation. And then we live very small inside all of that. And so, yeah, it's a big topic, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I like, I always say this, you guys know this. I like using the words that have already this notion to them, like pre-thought already of negativity. Because like we said, manipulation is not a negative word. Like you manipulate clay into a pot, make something in a vase. Like I talked about procrastination. I've listened to an hour and a half podcast of what it could have told you that that's a skill to have. So it's like, I just want to be balanced in the thoughtfulness on every side of things. I think when we say things with such determination, we're walking in a dangerous part of our lives. Like when we think one thing is everything, like, well, if it's not, then it's not. The people that speak like that, it's just like, but why can't it be? What if right now is not? What if right this second the not, but it can be tomorrow or another life? I don't even know. Like I'm not trying to get like crazy with that thought, but the idea is is like, why purposely limit anything we are trying to do? That's all I'm saying. I think when you have tons of options in front of you, you just have the ability to almost do anything. You start to find things pop up, and fears will go away. You know, you only fear. How do you fear things? Like, why do you fear things? I don't know what anybody is scared of here, but like, when are you scared of spiders? Yeah, can't hear me. But you understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm not asking truthfully for an answer. I want you to think. Why do you think the way you think? You have to look up definitions in a book. Like, why are you scared of something? Because something happened one time? Why is it changing that reaction in your body? Why when it happens again, you're more scared? Like, have you questioned the source of it? And my belief, I'm not saying it's for anybody or truth at all. I'm saying my belief is because we already set ideas about things in our heads way long before we got scared of it. And that can be a spider, it could be a job opportunity, it could be a relationship with somebody, it could be having kids, it could be getting sick, it could be getting old. All of it. It comes from a seedling of an idea that you had somewhere that you might not even know when it started. Could have happened when you're 2 years old. Could happen a year ago when you're adult and you're conscious of the choice. Portia, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I liked how Amber had said, I always think of labels as limitations, right? And I think of the lines as the labels, but I mean, I think about if every day you got up and you had the same thought process of, I'm going to keep this box and I'm only going to think in this box. And that was how you implemented your life, it would lead to stagnation, right? You wouldn't ever have any opportunity to grow. And I think that when we're able to start crossing more lines, the word I hear is trust. When you can trust yourself to cross that line and say, I know I'm going to cross this line, right? And I'm aware of that this might have a good outcome or this might have a bad outcome, right? Or maybe I look at that bad outcome as just another opportunity that maybe, okay, so I went for it and it didn't work out, but something better is going to come my way, right?
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, like everything comes back to perspective, everything, because we could always keep turning it into something else and we could always turn it back onto our fear if we wanted to, right? And I think like, even like when we talk about relationships and how Amber had said, we think of those lines as like, okay, I'm crossing someone's line and automatically, yes, people think of a relationship. I automatically thought of when I heard you talk about lines of stepping out of your comfort zone, right? You're stepping into an unknown, right? So, but if we think about relationships, I think a hard truth about relationships is this, that we allow people to treat us that way, right? And so like when we get our hearts broken, I always think that no one can break your heart because you allow them to, right? Because we're put into that, our parents, but if we're choosing to be in something that is not fulfilling to us, right? That comes back to the why, like you said, why do you do what you do? Or why are you still in something or giving to something? Or even if it's not a relationship, it's something outside that you're doing in your life and it's not fulfilling you. At what point do you say like, I have to make a change? And then it comes, if I have this fear, a lot of people never do change because they have a fear, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah, I mean, that's as I mean, I feel like this topic is something it can go in so many branched off ways for us to talk about it because it has so many different meanings. The lines are restrictions we put on ourselves, our standards, expectations. I mean, it has many different forms to this conversation. But I think I guess what I was trying to put out was just that even if we have them, just because I live like that, it's not what I'm saying. I live like that because it works for me. I try not to have lines, but it doesn't mean they're not important to have in your life. If you need structure in your life, like the guy talked about today, procrastination can be a skill, but it's not good for everybody. It is bad for some people. It's the worst. But talking on both sides of the things, you get to understand that there's not just one side of procrastination. Like maybe you find yourself procrastinating, but maybe you didn't know it was a skill. Maybe you should lean into it. Maybe you'd be more productive. You know what I'm saying? If we think about it and we're having these conversations, we're talking about manipulation is not bad. Lean into it. Maybe you'd be the title of the best manipulator in the world, helping people form them to change. So like, I want to get in this practice of us like looking at our vocabulary and our terms differently, that there is good on both sides of every word. But also there's stuff right in place. Like, easy way of learning things or pushing yourself or these lines I'm talking about is like, testing yourself constantly, pushing yourself up against the limit. It's one of the easiest ways to learn something new. Studying people that are amazing at it, the best ever, and then start to put small things in practice another way. Like literally the meaningfulness, we talked about this before, putting more meaning behind that, it'll push you more to drive towards it, push up against it, push against your fear, that line that you created for yourself, right? So there's a bunch of different ways to it, and we don't need to go all through that, but I guess the whole conversation is just about, let's not limit ourselves to who we think we are in this moment, but try to see yourself without limitations. What does that look like? Who do you look like? What if you didn't have any financial limitations today? What if you didn't have a mortgage? What if all your kids were in school paid for? What if your health was perfect? What if you knew you were going to live? Who are you? What do you look like from that standpoint? If you're limitless, if you truly have no limitations, so you don't allow yourself to have an excuse, then write down who the limitless version looks like of you. What does that look like? What would you be doing? Who are you? I mean, that's the stuff that like just like drives me. That's why I like being in corners. That's why I like to fight out of a corner and try to win. That's why I like to be up against it. Like I don't want to plan because I want things to be unexpected. And if they're unexpectedly amazing, I lean into it. It's awesome. If it's unexpectedly tragic, I learn way quicker. Like it's like in my face, and I have no choice but to take it on and deal with it. But if I just talk myself in the idea of what's about to come, or maybe never does one day, I'm not giving myself the full chance to like embrace that moment or heal from that moment, good or bad. Because I've already talked myself in what I think it is. That spider is scary. I'm scared of spiders. Well, no shit. We already went through it. Like I told you guys a long time ago, and I think we did with the helmet a little bit when I had the head thing on. I told you an example that we trained athletes to believe they were somewhere before they even went there. That's what I'm talking about. That's what kind of stuff works. It's science. It works. You can talk yourself into and out of fear. It's a frequency pattern in your brain. I've done it. I've witnessed it. I've watched way smarter guys than me and women than me do it, like on the spot. I've witnessed it happening, watch their brain graphs and watch them get over their fear. Blowing my mind. Like we have it. So it's not like this thing like what we're just going to talk about. I'm saying let's apply this shit. Let's stop going up against the old norms and the old guidelines and the whoever, whatever we think we're supposed to be doing. But like, who is the limitless version of you? Can you, because there is realities of life. Maybe we still need to pay for this house. We saw these things, but can you take a little bit of that limitless version of you and pull it into your current today life? I think probably the answer is yes for everybody. But you got to have something behind it. You got to have reward behind it. You got to have emotion behind it. You got to want to do it. All these things. Not shit ain't easy.
And it doesn't always mean blow up your world either. You can grow and become limitless and not destroy everybody in your life because all of a sudden you've woken up to the epiphany that you're bigger than all of it. It's not that. It's how do you respect everything and everyone around you and still respect yourself ultimately so you can be the best version of you for this life.
Yeah, and I think that what Amber just said there is important. You don't want to get above yourself. I'm not saying act like a God type, but I'm saying more like if you communicate really well with people, you won't ever have to feel like that. You'll just feel like you're owning your own life. You're getting living it without judgment, but you also got to explain to people because they won't understand it. You have to have these conversations. You have to have conversations. You have to have communication and talk things through so that you don't look like what Amber's explained, because it can be that. When you walk a line, no pun intended, when you walk a line that's up against it and you walk for risk and you're crossing that dotted line all the time, you're not gonna always get the reception you want from everybody. And what did we talk about last time? We talked about what do we really want from anybody in our lives? We want love. We want to earn their respect, their time. We want their energy. We want them to look at us like we hope we would look at us through our eyes. Like it's the only thing that we truly are fighting each other for in this world is to feel loved like you feel like you give out to others. You want to receive, but we just never really talk about it. We don't ask for it. We don't say it. So push up against the line, risk it a little bit. Past that guy that's doing 40 and 55. It's annoying, man. Shit's annoying. Takes forever. You know, but make sure you got enough car. Don't hit him on an uphill when you got a 3-cylinder. You know what I'm talking about? Don't try to pass me on your tractor, Jason. All right. Anybody else want to add anything? I wanted to say one thing about Brandon. Brandon sent us a message in our group about Chad's message, and I thought it was right on and good timing. You definitely should go listen to it. And obviously they say it in a little more different terms than I believe it, but like the message for me is always about getting more people. It doesn't have to be a church thing. It doesn't have to be send more people to Zoe so they can have more people in their church. He's saying get more people to do these things, have conversations with you, to talk with you. You don't have to talk them into, they're not with the Lord and you have to talk them into it. Like you don't have to force anybody anything out of you. Talk to them as you. If somebody is impressed by you, if somebody loves you, if somebody gets to know you and you've changed their life in certain ways without pushing on them, they will become you. We want to emulate what we think is great. So just be a great person. You know, it's not always about Zoe or whatever your church is called. It's about emulating. People will follow what you have to lead. We talked about that last time. So break up some lines. Break some lines open, turn them in different shapes. Octagons, squares, circles, rectangles, triangles, whatever you want. Move some space around so you can go navigate through that. Because a line's like this, you can't get around it. Move it into different shapes. Start little by little, start bringing some of that limitless you and see what you can pull in your life. And we surprise each other. You know what I'm saying? All right. Last chance. Anybody want to spit something? Okay, 3, 2, 1. All right. Love you guys. Appreciate you. Have a good week. Pray for everybody in Dallas. Whatever happened today was a tragedy, but we'll see you guys all next Monday. I don't think Portia, when is the next Zoe?
Last week of August.
Last week of August, 26th or something, right? Anyway, we'll be together Mondays, but Zoe starts back up. Yeah, last week of August. So keep watching the message, and we'll get back together then for Zoe. But I'll see you next Monday.
Bye.
Love you guys. Have a wonderful week.
Bye, everybody. Love you. Good night.